I'm Tiffany. I'm at New York Comic Con with the amazing Willow Wilson. How are you?
I'm great, Tiffany. How are you?
I'm excellent. It's Thursday, so it's always the best day at New York Comic Con.
Only yours downhill from here.
A little bit. You are an incredible creator, incredible writer, creator of Ms. Marvel, writer currently of Poison Ivy, and writer of IDW's The Hunger and the Dusk, which is a spectacular fantasy comic. We're 3 issues in at this point, and I just kind of wish you just put them all out there at this point, because I just want all of it right now. What's it like writing for Hunger and Dusk?
You know, it's been really, really fun. Like a lot of comics creators, there was a lot of uncertainty during the pandemic or the lockdown portion of everything. So I had a couple of different projects put on hold.
Okay.
And in all of this, I began to sort of think about a high fantasy comic about orcs that I was just calling Hot Orc Saga in my head. It was just kind of something that bubbled away, and I wasn't sure it would ever really see the light of day because, you know, there aren't really a lot of high fantasy comics out there right now.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh, is there a market for this? Is there a publisher for this, an audience for this? And I was talking with Mark at IDW, and I said, I have this idea.
Yeah.
You might think I'm totally losing it, but do you have any interest in a Hot Orc Saga about, you know, orcs and humans who have to form this fragile alliance in a world that is sort of ecologically collapsing a lot like ours? And he said, that sounds great. And I was like, oh my God.
You're like, oh
no. So yeah, I was really thrilled that it found a home in IDW.
That's awesome.
Working with Chris Wildgoose has been amazing. He is just, in addition to being a really talented artist, his ability to visualize a world, sort of from soup to nuts, from the environment to the costumes to the history, is really second to none. And so it's just been an incredible experience, and to see the fan reaction.
Yeah.
I was familiar with his work from sort of the Bat family.
Okay.
And I'd seen some of his work before. But he was a suggestion from IDW, like, hey, we really want to work with this guy, and we think you guys would be very simpatico in terms of the way that you visualize this series. And as soon as he sent in some concept sketches, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, you're right. 100%.
Yeah.
And you know, comics are fun kind of no matter what, but it's especially rewarding when I think you get in that zone with your co-creators where everybody has the same vision and everybody's really excited about it.
Are you the kind of writer who is like, here's my very detailed description, or do you slip in some of those and then something cool happens and just leave them do it?
You know, I'm somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
I don't like to tell artists, you know, how big panels should be, where they should be on the page, any of that really ultra granular stuff.
Right.
I think usually artists have the best instinct for that kind of stuff, and I don't want to get in their way. But especially in a book like this, when you're doing a ton of world building, page by page. This is a world that people have not been in before. It's not related to anything else that's out there. It's not a multiverse that they're familiar with.
Right.
So some of the descriptions for this do get very detailed, simply because we've never seen them before. But I have to say, you know, Chris and I are very much co-creators in that sense, because he will come in and say, what if we have, you know, these cool tumbled down statues that could be related to some, you know, belief system that's been extinct for who knows how long? And I'm like, great. Yeah. And I'll put it in.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. It's interesting you mentioned the world, because when I first read the first issue, I was like, this world is entirely new to me, and yet there's something very comfortable, very lived in about it. Like, even from that first issue, I was like, I don't know these characters at all, and yet I kind of feel like I do know them, the way that the story is unfolding. What's it like building for a fantasy world versus your kind of superhero style world?
Yeah, it's very different, and not just in terms of what kind of visuals are on the page, but the pacing is very different.
Yeah.
And you know, that's something that I didn't anticipate going in. I was like, wow, I've never tried to write a high fantasy comic where you have to tell the reader by implication a lot about the history of this world for exactly the reasons that you mentioned. We haven't been here before. We don't know what the history is. We don't know the context. And so that really affects the pace of the book. It affects where certain things go within the story. You know, it's really unique. And if it feels lived in, that's great, because it should feel familiar enough to people who love sort of classic Western high fantasy. You know, like we've all seen the elves and the orcs, and you know, we're familiar with that. But hopefully this has a new little spin on things that maybe, even if you're a big fan of the genre, it's possible you haven't seen before.
Yes.
And that's, you know, I think Chris's and my big hope for this is that you pick it up and you'll be like, oh, you know, like I play World of Warcraft, you know, this kind of feels familiar. And then you open it up and say, oh, I was not expecting that.
Yes.
So ideally, that's the reaction that we're hoping people get.
And I think you have struck that perfect balance, because utilizing words like orc or dwarf or human, you know what I mean? Like immediately it just makes someone go, oh, I'm at ease, as opposed to being like, here's a whole bunch of made up words, learn all of them. You didn't info dump us.
Yes.
Like I have absolutely loved like discovering this world and just becoming very like even more comfortable with it. And I love the fact that I know there's a history, and you're like giving us little
hints.
Yeah, little hints, like little things to come or like that have happened. And it's brilliant. It's just a perfect place to begin this story, is right where you're bringing.
Well, thank you. I'm gonna write that down and put it on a poster.
Yeah, right.
That's really great to hear.
You mentioned World of Warcraft. I have heard that you have a bit of a history with
yes.
And having that own history myself, I can't help it. I have to ask myself, were you an Alliance or a Horde player?
Horde.
Thank you.
Horde for life.
Yes, me too.
Yes, I played a troll hunter.
Oh my, that's so funny.
The most maligned, you know, category in the whole game.
No, I played an orc hunter, so.
That's great. Solidarity. Nobody wants you in the PvP group.
No, you know, that's all right. They don't know what they're missing out on.
They don't know what they're missing out on.
I've got a bear. Leave me alone. Very happy.
Exactly.
Speaking just of games, just of current topics, are you playing anything right now? Are you going to be jumping into maybe Baldur's Gate?
I wish. You know, at this point, and this is something that I discovered, I really, really love MMOs. That's kind of where my heart is. I started playing Elder Scrolls Online in beta.
Oh my gosh!
Beta. Yes, I was one of the beta testers. And that's what I love, but the problem with those games is that the better you get and the more you advance, the more hours you have to put in to stay at that level.
Yeah.
And I've got 2 kids who
does.
have their own schedules.
Yep.
And, you know, like I'm lucky these days if I can watch one episode of a show from beginning to end without interruption.
Totally get you.
So unfortunately at this point, you know, my gaming is sort of limited to playing 15 minutes of like, you know, the Switch port of Skyrim every so often.
How is that, by the way?
It's a really good port.
Is it?
It is.
That's
yeah,
okay.
I was very impressed. You know, it's there's a nostalgia factor.
Yes,
so,
for sure. But people give the Switch a hard time with the ports, and I was like, no, I think you can handle it. You know,
I was impressed.
Yeah.
I've been impressed.
Yeah,
so
no,
if you're
absolutely.
looking to play the Switch port, you know, I give it 2 thumbs up.
And I have to tell you though, like, with this book coming out when it came out, and honestly with Baldur's Gate becoming like this powerhouse, like what a great time for this to be coming out right now. If you like fantasy games, if you like Baldur's Gate, if you love World of Warcraft,
World of Warcraft,
like trust me, you're gonna find something in this. It's not gonna be exactly the same by any means, but like you're gonna find something comfortable and welcoming and an incredible story that's going to unfold for us.
We all grew up with these sort of fantasy tropes, you know, which I think tell us a lot about ourselves. You know, I think they're sort of a commentary on our own culture and our own norms and how those evolve over time. And you sort of look back at some of the older fantasy and you're like, I don't know about this. So, you know, like what's interesting to me is it's an evolving mythology.
Right.
You know, it's not set in stone.
Yes.
So we have sort of callbacks to things that we all grew up with and love, but at the same time, you know, we ask, can this have relevance today? Like, is this relevant to the world that we live in right now?
Sure.
And, you know, kind of discovering that has been a lot of fun.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I feel like I would be remiss to not ask you a little bit about Ms. Marvel to some degree, because I know there's a movie coming out, but more I wanted to ask you, what is it like having created this character? Now a real life person is playing this character, and that person is now writing for Ms. Marvel. Like, what does that feel like? It's almost like the character itself is now writing for herself.
Yes, it's extremely meta, but I was just so happy because, honest to God, Iman Vellani was born to play this character. Yeah. I've had a chance to chat with her, and she is just as delightful. You know, face to face.
Right.
Well, I mean, you know, over Zoom. Anyway.
Right. It's basically face to face.
Yes. No, I got to chat with her while she was filming on location, and you could not envision someone better suited to play that character.
Yeah.
You know, to embody the values of that character.
Yes.
And it's just incredible. You know, like it's the wonderful thing about comics is that you get to be, if you do a good job, you get to be part of something immortal. Yeah. Something that will outlive you. Yeah. And to be part of that for Ms. Marvel, I think is going to remain the high watermark probably for me forever, because it's you know, now it's not just a book, now it's a legacy. Yeah. And that's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing that there are people who now I can't believe I'm saying this, grew up with the books.
Right.
Who are bringing their own experience and their own interpretation
yes.
to those stories.
If you haven't had a chance, absolutely go pick up The Hunger in the Dusk. Issues 1, 2, and 3 are out. Just go get it. Just leave from this video and go buy it immediately.
I co-sign all of that.
Thank you so much, Willow, for being
My
here.
pleasure, Tiffany. Take care.
All right, we'll see you guys next time.